mic is on.
You're being recorded.
50%, the 50% loophole for hissing.
So I think we have a little bit of a typo on the agenda. Shelley Shelley, you were not the past secretary. So I thought that we might have Mark get started since you are the prior secretary. Is everybody in agreement with that?
Just want me to go over last minutes.
What?
Do you want me to just go over the last minutes?
No, you'll just actually open the meeting and elect a chair and secretary.
Okay. So yeah, we're gonna open up and we're gonna start chair and secretary. Read section 47. All right. So, section 47, water
Our
rate.
first order of business is to elect the chair and secretary.
All right, so we're gonna put that up for discussion right now about who is up for chair.
I'm going to nominate Shelley Clark
I'll second that nomination.
for chair. For chair.
I would accept that nomination.
Oh, do you get a choice? And now we'll take a vote. We have a motion on the table and
All right, all in favor? Shelley? Raise your hand. I think you got it. So she is now elected chair. All right, next will be the secretary. Do we got any volunteers?
I could do it.
I nominate Clark Kent.
A second.
All in favor, raise your hand.
thank you for volunteering, Clark.
Sure.
We have Clark Kent as the new secretary.
And you, sir, can pass the gavel to the new chair.
All right, that's,
All right, well, thank you. It's exciting to be back in the chambers and sitting with the Water Rate Advisory Committee again. So first item on the agenda is approval of minutes from February 12th, 2025. And so do we have those minutes available?
Chairperson Clark. Unfortunately, we're having some technical difficulty retrieving those minutes. They are on the old domain. We switched from a .us to a .gov domain. I'm working with our IT department to get all of those. So I can update the committee after we retrieve those minutes.
Okay. Counselor Holt?
One thing that we discussed, so I should bring it to the table before the meeting started, was that perhaps if we get through everything tonight, perhaps to meet and approve just for the purpose of those minutes, like maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes before a regular council meeting or work session, just to alleviate council members having to come twice. It's just more convenient, so it's just an option. I just want to throw it out there. And because I personally don't think we should wait 2 years to approve them. So I think we kind of are forced, if we're going to do right by our community, to have a second meeting just for the approval of minutes, if we don't need one already for the rest of this. So just wanted to throw that out there.
So if we do that, can we also approve the minutes from tonight's meeting?
Yes.
Do that all at the same time? Okay.
All right. Is there any discussion on the approval, like to pause on, or I guess not table, to pause on approval of the minutes from February 12th, 2025 to the next meeting that we have, and then at the same time approving the minutes from tonight's meeting?
I just wanted to bring up again something Councilor Holt said, that if we do that next time, people won't have to wait, the public won't have to wait a year to see the minutes. So that's a really good plan.
For this year's
For
minutes
this
too,
year's,
yeah, I
yeah.
do like it too. It puts a
That's
little
really cool.
pressure on you.
All right. Okay, well, so any other discussion or any dissent with moving forward in that manner? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and pause on approving the minutes of February 12th, 2025 until the next time we meet. And then at the same time, we'll approve the minutes from tonight's meeting. So that'll be an exciting development. All right, so moving now to item number 3 on the agenda. It looks like public input is next on the agenda. Do we have any public input?
Do not look at me.
We all did.
Not why I came.
Is there any online?
Oh yeah, is there any input online?
I haven't received any.
All right, okay. Seeing no public input, we'll go ahead and move to item number 4 on our agenda, was just to read section 47 of the city charter. And this should be printed out and available for you. Is there anyone who is excited about reading?
Go ahead.
All right.
Oh, excuse me. Notwithstanding any other provision in this charter, the City of Cresswell, beginning the fiscal year following passage of this measure, shall determine water rates on an annual basis as part of the budget adoption process. Water rates shall be set so as to fully cover the actual costs of providing water services. B, for water rates effective following the passage of this measure, a water rate advisory committee shall be established by the mayor to review and recommend water rates for the upcoming fiscal year. The advisory committee shall be composed of 6 members, 3 of whom shall be councilors, 2 citizens of Cresswell, and 1 at-large position. The city council shall hold a public hearing prior to the council's adoption of water rates. C, setting of water rates shall be performed by the city council as provided in this section. There shall be no requirement to submit proposed water rates to city voters for approval. Should the council approve a water rate increase so as to fully cover the actual cost of providing water services, the amount of the water rate increase shall not be limited by financial measures such as the rate of inflation or the consumer price index. D, for purposes of this section, water rates are the rates charged by the city to users of the city's water utility system. Water rates include any per cubic foot charge as well as any base or fixed charges assessed to water utility customers. And E, for purposes of this section, the actual costs of providing water service include all the costs associated with providing water services to city water utility customers. Costs include, but are not limited to, infrastructure costs, water permit costs, water supply costs, maintenance costs, personnel costs, and debt service costs. Approved by the voters at the September 15, 2015 election.
All right. Thank you. All right, any questions about section 47 of the water rates before we move on? Okay. Seeing none, I will actually turn the floor over to Director Piper to be able to discuss, and if it would be helpful for you, it might make sense for you to be able to do the presentation in full that does both the water rates and then the sewer rates and then the transportation utility fee, and then we can move to a period of discussion.
Thank you, Chair Clark. Yeah, I was going to open up with that exact sentiment. This year we looked at the rates holistically, like what do all the rates do financially to the community? And we knew that it's going to be a tough year with sewer rates. Obviously, we had a 15% rate increase last year, and we talked about having another 15% rate increase to meet debt service on a very accelerated schedule. But I just wanted to keep in mind, we looked and tried to keep rates as consistent year over year as possible so that folks have a chance to plan and budget ahead of time and not be hit by a single year rate increase that's incredibly high. So You should have the presentation in front of you. Most of you had a chance to go through it, I'm sure, if not all of you, and I'll just dig right in. Again, I appreciate that we get to do this once a year. It might seem like it's a lot of extra work, but on the other hand, we have to do this work to get to the budget. So for me, it's not that much extra work. And it's less crystal ball trying to project out 5 years, setting rates for 5 years, and then walking away and coming back again in 5 years. I'd rather do this every year. So Crestwell Water, again, mostly residential. No surprise there. Mostly residential users. Most of the usage is residential. Almost all the meters are 3/4 inch meters, which we'll get into the significance of that. Demographics, mostly families. The biggest group is the age range from 25 to 45. We have 66% of our community is family households. And we're higher than 39% of the state average on that. Conversely, singles and seniors living alone, we're 28% lower and 37% lower. And no surprise there. It has to do with the type of housing we have. We have single family dwellings primarily. The methodology we use is called a potential demand base. It's based on the meter size. This restricts the amount of water that can be used at a given time. The base rates cover the fixed cost, as the charter points out. This balances the ability to pay and the cost to serve. It'll balance it better if we have a mixture of users. We do have a system that will allow more commercial and industrial growth. But due to our low commercial and industrial use, the current rates are very similar to a flat rate. If you were to compare the two side by side, we pretty much end up at the same conclusion. There is a little bit of rate coverage from the small amount of businesses that we have in commercial businesses. Additional water usage covers those variable costs that we talked about in the charter. Those costs include chemicals, maintenance, electricity of the plant. If you look at the cost structure just from a very simplified view of 2,103 users at $39.19, our current base rate, over 12 months equals about $1 million in annual revenues. And if you look at personal services and debt services, those are primarily fixed costs. There's some give and take there with materials and services, but again, just simplified, that's also about $1 million, so we're covering our costs. Again, I want to point out the good news about the FEMA grants. They paid for the water tower anchoring project that occurred, also the flexible hose connection. That was all finished in the last fiscal year. We're still working on a distribution line relocation grant right now. That project's been bid or is about to be bid. Right. That's really helpful with our users and the user rates in the projected capital improvement plan. So we're meeting how we do in fiscal year 25? We're meeting our water costs and our capital reserves. According to the audit for fiscal year ending 2025, we have $350,726 we can transfer over to the capital reserves fund for future projects. So a little foreshadowing to the budget that's upcoming, we might see a transfer of that exact amount. Rates decreased 5% in fiscal year 2025. A lot of that had to do with the grant funding we had. Now, a little foreshadowing to what's to come in the slides, there's an annual increase of 1.5% to continue building reserves year over year. And debt service will be paid off in 2035. So at that point, we can put that money into capital projects as well. And with a 1.5% year over year increase, we're projecting reserves to be at $4.8 million. So a lot of money to hit those projects. Why do we need that money? Well, if you look at our capital improvements list in the Water Master Plan in 2018 dollars, we have about 4.8, 5.3 million 2018 dollars. Granted, some of those priority projects were picked up with grant funds at that 1.8 million or the 3 million. I can't remember where the anchoring project distribution line fell. It fell in one of those categories. So we're picking up some of that project now, plus inflation. When we get to the other projects in the list, we're sitting really good with reserves. And this was pointed out by our SDC consultant who looked at our reserves and said, hey, you can collect an improvement. So that's why if you look at our water SDCs, we do not collect a water SDC improvement. So we've done very well over the years. And part of that is the voters who have us do these annual meetings.
Jim, can you state that again, what you just said about the reserves and the comment of the SDC person?
Yeah,
Catch it the first time.
SDC improvements, when you collect those from future development, that's because you have unfunded projects on your CIP that will need to be funded, and future development will pay for those through an SDC. And according to our SDC consultant, we are funded. So we're looking really good in the water fund. So we're just projecting out a 1.5% rate increase through fiscal year 2035, which I said after that year we're paying off our debt service. So that's another $150,000 that will be available for capital improvements on an annual basis going forward after that. So very comfortably we can sit at a 1.5% rate increase next year. Now again, projecting that far out, it's kind of crystal ball. We don't know what's going to come, you know. But from what we know today, that's where we're at. We could do a 0%.
Stacy had her hand up.
I actually just wanted to know what 0% looks like.
Okay, yeah, next slide.
So I had a question on this page.
Okay.
What does it mean growth revenue percentage increase, 5%?
Oh, it is there.
Sure, so as you increase your user base, you spread those costs out for the users.
Okay, so that's the growth of the user base, okay.
Yeah, and they used to calculate 1%, but since the moratorium, it's a little bleaker. And that's an average. I mean, some years we're gonna have more, some less. That's just an average. So for example, when we had 1% growth, so of the 2,000, let's just round it to 2,000 households. If we have 20 new households, that's where your 1% is. Yes.
Just to be clear, that you're saying that any rate increase that you're suggesting is to build the reserves, for clarity.
Yes, because if you look at the next slide, well, to a point, once on the 0% increase, once you get to the next slide, by 29, 30, there needs to be a rate increase to keep from going into the negative.
Sure.
But yeah, we could comfortably go without a rate increase for 3 years too. That is another option. The difference there is a $600,000 reserve difference. So I wanted to point out both. You know. So then we look at a 3% rate increase. You know, I just had to throw something else out there. Well, that's typical inflationary outlook. If we did that over 3 years, and then a fourth year we had a 4% rate increase, then we could go 0 out for all the way out to 2035 and end up with a $5.3 million reserve. So I want to show that this group, you know, you could go 3 and end up with more reserves and then have a period of time where you have 0 rate increases. It's just another option.
So some of the unknowns would be the moratorium, and at what point that's completed and we're able to start adding houses. And then the other unknown is things that just happen to come up. You know, we didn't expect a few years ago that FEMA was gonna say we gotta do all the sewer stuff. And I don't know if there's, you know, questionable things that could come up in the next few years that would impact water significantly. And then you say, oh, wish we had more reserves. So that's kind of the unknowns that you're referring to?
Yeah, either just natural disaster or political changes. Yeah, things that are just out of our control that we didn't see coming.
Would you say that we have plenty of reserves right now if we had an emergency? In the current moment, not
In the-
projected?
In the current moment, we're sitting at
I know how much.
about 2.5 million. That's pretty good.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
To me,
yeah.
2.5 million means nothing. Is that good? Yeah.
You know, with the caveat, it greatly depends on
Yeah,
The
yeah,
magnitude.
the
yeah.
magnitude of it, right?
Sure, of
So,
course.
But
Okay.
for, I would say, typical things that might come up,
Then
not,
it's, we're sitting
not a,
good.
not a level of magnitude,
Okay,
would just be the caveat.
Yeah.
don't get bummed. Okay.
Yeah, I think I might add, in 2035, as Jim pointed out, we have 4.8, I believe that's what that was, $4.8 million worth of improvements made, that need to be made. And so if you don't do an increase, yes, 4.8, you start falling short of those needed maintenance items. At some point, you'll fall short of those.
So my question is that if we do tie into Springfield, whatever, with, well, this is just water rates. So why are we looking way out here when we're doing really good right now? And I don't want to overcharge people. You know, we have a good reserve. And I'm not saying that we need to take a loss, but I want to be worried about how much we're charging somebody for the next year, you know? I'm not trying, look, I wouldn't want the city to keep growing this revenue whenever they could be giving some of that back to the citizens right there. You know, we're not in the business to make money, but we do need money to operate. But I just think that you give them, we're looking at too much, and I wouldn't wanna look at these other numbers and say, hey, I'm gonna have to go off of 3, 3, 3, 3, 4, and it looks good in like 10 more years. But now we're gonna ask people 3%, you know, and if you look at our demographic, those people aren't, I mean, nobody wants to pay another 3%, you know, but I just wanna warn against going too high with this rate of the increase right there. Cause it should be just what it costs, operating costs plus all of its added ones right there. And then I understand you might need some more just to compensate for inflation, you know, but I definitely don't wanna go sky high like the 3%. You know, it's just like it's a little much to be requiring some, for a place that's already got higher water than, you know, a Eugene Springfield.
So to answer the question about why we went out to 2035, we were looking at all of the rates holistically, and Jim will get to that later, mainly so we could see the impact of the wastewater rate on all of the rates. Because that wastewater facility, the regional connection will come on in 5-7 years. Then we wanted to look at a few years after that, so we can do that analysis now and provide you that information. So that's why there's a longer than maybe typical sort of projection. Because at the end of the presentation, you'll see all of those utility rates combined and what that means for the user as well. So we were sensitive to the wastewater piece.
I feel like we're stepping a little bit outside of our charge by looking at it holistically. The voters voted for us to consider water rates based on what it's costing us today. Not 10 years from now, not what it's costing us in consideration of water or of sewer. So I think we're doing them a disservice by not just handling the water rate by itself.
And you can do that. You can look at that. That's why each of these were done separately. You can do that either at all of the different scenarios that Jim's laid out. We did it for the timeline. It was one of the questions that was in front of the council at one of the work sessions, was to give the community an understanding of what that wastewater will do to their utility rate, all of the rates. So we use this exercise to help answer that question for the council.
But the way, okay.
And that doesn't mean.
It shouldn't impact water rates. None of the other stuff
No, it-
should have any bearing on the water rate.
I'm not saying
Okay.
that. That's why the water rates are separate. But there's also the opportunity to look at all of the utility, all of the rates from what a community member is going to pay.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think you'll see staff recommendation is not a 3% rate increase. There was just a question about, okay, what would it take to get to like no rate increase for years after the sewer plant's online? And so I threw it in there, but to your point, we can't charge more per the charter.
Well, and
Yeah.
part of me thinks that includes the reserves. I don't think it's fair to just raise the rate so you can build reserves that are already pretty plentiful. So, I mean, I know we're not to discussion yet, but that's kind of where I'm going.
I might add some basis here. We have a water master plan, and it has a planning period of 20 years. And within that master plan, it lays out the projects that need done kind of year over year in that planning period. That's where the $4.8 billion come from. And so if you look in section E of the charter, it talks about costs that are included, are infrastructure costs, water supply costs, maintenance costs, personnel costs, blah, 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 blah. But the infrastructure costs come directly out of that master plan, which is a 20-year planning period. So even though you're looking at year-over-year costs and this year's costs, you still are projecting out within that planning period. Otherwise, your master plans that you paid $200,000 for.
I wonder if the voters knew that when they voted on this. I wonder if they, like me, assumed that the rates would be looked at on a yearly basis.
Well,
So-
yes and both. It was, when this was passed in 2015, time I was mayor, we talked about both, that the value of doing it 1 year at a time was previously, the city did a water rate analysis once every, you were around, Cliff, 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
Years or so, yeah.
So you made big guesses, and then sometimes you had to make big corrections. So doing it every year, Stacy, to your point, yes, you get to look at it fresh every year. The other thing we made a point of, and that's what this E is intended to cover, is saying that we do know we have, for instance, debt service. We do know we have reserves, as you're saying, for the capital expenses. And so that factors into the cost today, is part of that cost today, providing water, is making sure that next year we're able to do the maintenance that's required next year and not come to next year and say, oh, now we got big maintenance, we got to jump it up. So we really tried to explain to the community back in 2015 that the total cost of water also makes sure that next year you can do the maintenance required, and in 2 years, and we factor that into the current rate.
And I think, so we're laying out the projection to 2035. You review it every year. It's very similar to a capital improvement program. So if something to our benefit takes place in it during the year, which allows us to still get to that 4.8 and maybe lower the following year's rates, that would come to you. If something that is unexpected and costs money, that causes us the need to raise the 1.5 as it's projected to maintain that 4.8 million, that would come to you as well. So the way that we're laying it out is forecasting to make sure we get that 4.8. It's not precluding your annual review to adjust that up or down depending on what circumstances would be discussed at the time.
I'm just looking at it just like, we're gonna have a better look at it for every year. I just definitely don't want to. We're looking at reserves, we should take reserves into account of what's gonna have to happen this year for maintenance and see if we have enough to cover it. You know, of course, we definitely wanna have that. And we, of course, you wanna make sure any unexpected, but I'm not trying to be like, I'm not trying to have like a big reserve fund. We need to be able to function and have emergency ones, but not overcharge people.
That's why I asked about the current, yeah,
I
whether or not
think
it
when
was
you see
enough.
staff's recommendation, that answer will be.
I think we see a whole lot of different numbers and what we're doing, because, I mean, you live here, we're the ones that pay this bill. And all of our other citizens that put us here, you know, they put us here to make sure we're making the best decision, not only for us, but for them. So, and, yeah.
So a quick response to what you said, Vincent. When this was set up 10 years ago, nobody ever thought we would ever get to the place where we would charge a 0% increase. Right, Cliff? You've been, nobody ever thought we would see the day that we would charge probably less than 3 or 4%. But because we do it every year and crunch these numbers very tightly, last year was a miracle. And today I actually went over to visit just some people in Crestwell just randomly, and the lady said, "It's a miracle and it should be screamed from the housetops. Crestwell had a 0% interest. That's unheard of." We would have never got there if we hadn't been evaluating every year and saying, what do we need to do? So,
It was actually a 5% decrease, as I recall.
well, that was a bigger miracle, yeah.
And then, Jim, I just want to just check in, because from having been on the committee for many years now, my understanding is that you do actually do projections out for several years in advance to kind of see if we kind of adjust a little bit this way, right? Like, what would that be in 5 years, right? Like, what would that mean for us? So I think it sounds like this is a little bit of an extension of that, but not multiple years as an extension of the typical projection you would do, right?
Right, yeah, typically, when you do a pro forma, it's usually a 5-year forecast. This time we went out a little bit further. I wanted to make sure that we were tapering off our need, and if you look at revenues over expenditures on the 1.5% year over year, we're tapering off that need for additional revenue over expenditures. And that's because in 2035, that's the last year paying that debt service, and so that's gonna go away, which will leave us with money going into reserves. And we're fully funded in our capital projects list for our priority projects, according to our master plan. So this is a solid plan. I mean, there's no need to raise rates any higher than that, and I think you'll see staff recommends that over a 3% rate increase. But it's really the purview of this committee to decide, you know, you could do 0% rate increase. That also works, you know.
And then, again, so just double checking from a historical perspective, typically you also try and give the council or give the committee kind of a couple of options to consider. So like a 0%, last year, you know, a decrease in rates, right? Just to be able to kind of consider some numbers and again, kind of adjustment long-term, what would that mean for our fund balances, right?
Correct, correct. And to the point of who we did have a windfall from a grant, we would come back with a rate decrease. That funds those projects. All right, so our staff recommendation is to do a 1.5 rate increase for next fiscal year. It's sustainable year over year until debt service is paid off, like I discussed earlier. So, you know, just short of something that we can't see in the future, this plan will work. Well, now we'll get into the bad news. We all know the sewer doesn't have separate meter, but we determine it off of water meter usage, and we do a wintertime average for summer use because folks are putting it on their lawn or filling the pool or, things that aren't going into the sewer system. So it's pretty consistent. We can do a pretty good estimate of sewer revenues year over year. There is a charge per additional dwelling unit, which is another key feature of the sewer rate that makes it a lot more predictable. And in fiscal year 24-25, we had $731,359 for transfers. So again, a little foreshadowing to the budget. You might see that as a transfer item. Should see that as a transfer item. And we had this annual rate increase of 15% in the current year. And we know why we need those reserves. We're talking about doing a regional connection as our least cost. And you've heard 52 million, 12 million of that is to connect with Lane County from Goshen to Springfield, and we'll talk further about that. Worst case scenario is we build our own membrane plant at $70 million and still have the constraint of the tributary that we release to, and potential further needs. A few years ago was ammonia. Who knows what the next restriction will be. We also have this collection system upgrade. We're working on that. Now, you may have seen some folks out and about looking at sewer lines, but in downtown we have these old pipes that have cracked and leak, and all that does is allow rainwater to infiltrate into the sewer and then run out to the plant. So they call that I&I, or infiltration and inflow.
Inflow and infiltration.
Thank you, I get that wrong every time. Inflow and infiltration, what that does is just puts more cost burden on the treatment plant. It's more to let out into the unknown tributary. So we're correcting that, and we've got $1 million grant from Senate Bill 15, make sure I get that right, 1530. And Cliff has got people out working on it now. Well, for the treatment side of things, we've got two alternatives, like you spoke about. One of them's the least attractive right now at $70 million, and for more reasons than one. It's not only costly, it's easy, and I'll get to that. Easier, let's put it that way. The regional solution is going to take a lot of policy meetings. We're going to have to get through Metropolitan Wastewater ultimately to connect to them, but Eugene and Springfield as well. And again, that's that $40 million and $12 million for Lane County. And on slide 19 is a handy infograph that our engineer gave us, and it kind of shows the different hoops we have to jump through to get the regional solution implemented. And again, it's all those meetings with our partners. It's getting land use approval, getting the ability to go through land to connect. And then, once we have agreement that we can do this, then we start doing the financing. And we'll have a one-stop meeting, they call it, with all the agencies and kind of put together a financing plan to hopefully include some grants. And then we have to coordinate the Goshen project with Lane County. So there'll be some MOUs and IGAs that we have to go through. All this being said, it's going to take some time. And because of this time, on our 7-year timeline in our permit, DEQ recently granted us another year because they acknowledge this is going to take time.
Which
DEQ. Is this the state DEQ?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a question about this rate that at 15%. We don't even know if we're getting tied into Springfield yet. Are we still gonna charge 15% even without knowing what we're gonna do?
Yeah, I'm gonna get to that
The
point.
alternative is to build our own plant.
Well, it is, but this is to say that we're tying in, but we don't know what we're tying into yet. You know, so we don't have
We know there's
numbers.
going to be a huge cost, though.
Well, there will be, but it's, if we don't have an answer yet, why would we charge somebody?
So, that, if I remember correctly, the rate was increased this past year to 15%, and it was recommended for this year to be raised 15%, and that's what Jim let you know, that's where that 15%, that's what was recommended. I think in a few slides, you'll see several scenarios that are not the 15% because we crunched the numbers. And so the whole goal of when we looked at all of the rates, individually and combined, was really to how do we lessen the rate increase for the community? That's a huge question in front of the council. You guys are pivotal in making a recommendation to the council. So that was the context that we looked at this. That 15% was provided more for, I guess, context to what was out there and what was recommended last year. We're gonna, again, go through different scenarios to show you where I think we settled on good options for you guys to take a look at.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. The 15% also came from our engineer in the facilities plan update, that it would take 2 years of 15% rate increases to be prepared for the debt service payments that will be forthcoming after we construct
Just
it.
on clarification question on the regional, is that what, the one we were talking about, just doing it ourselves?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so the regional is connecting from here through Goshen to Springfield. to
Not waiting for
Metro.
Lane County?
Not waiting for
Yeah,
Lane County.
yeah.
If we wait for Lane County, what happens at that point?
DEQ made it clear that we really don't have the time to wait for Lane County. So it was becoming difficult to continue to meet their standards, meet the timeline, and have to wait for Lane County. And no fault to Lane County, they have their own budget stuff to work out and everything like that. So the way that we're looking at that 12 million is really, Crestwell would basically front that money with Lane County paying us back.
So I mean, because right now, we're paying up to Goshen, all on us. And then the 12 million would be the Lane.
From Goshen to Springfield.
And that would be the Lane County one.
That would be the Lane County piece.
So if we wait for Lane County, I'm saying that whatever that scenario is.
Sure.
Either we get the money from those guys or we get it. But if those guys pay for it, is that gonna lessen the cost on our guys? Or is it just gonna be?
I don't know if we've run that scenario or if you have an answer to that.
Yeah, I'll get to that part in the slide. I think that definitely has to be addressed. I've addressed it with Lane County Public Works Director. I touched base with our engineer on the project today as well. But I mean, we want to be good partners with Lane County as long as Lane County is willing to work with us, and ultimately the ratepayers cannot pay for their piece of the puzzle. That's got to be on Lane County, and we're going to give them notice that they need to come up with the financing when it's time to do the project.
I would just point out that Lane County doesn't prioritize the small cities all the time, which is the reason that we started talking about an alternative.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I was super thrilled when you brought that idea to the table, because we can't rely on them, and they've proven that over and over again.
Even that, it's like 7 years or whatever it is out.
Yeah.
So I mean, I wouldn't want to incur a cost right now that we can
discuss later on. You know, I want to be able to do what's here today and not.
Right.
later.
Yeah, understood.
Maybe answer your question a little more directly. There's a timeline from DEQ. We have a compliance schedule in our permit that lines out certain aspects that have to be done. And the very bottom of it is to have, whether we have our own plant or we connect MWMC to have a holistic solution for our sewer problem. And since we've petitioned DEQ to give us a 1-year extension, that 2031 date is now at 2032, so we've extended that 1 year. But to answer your question, if we go over those years and we still haven't got a solution, you can just wait for fines to start piling up. That's how DEQ starts addressing those, as they start doing compounding fines, and the city
Yeah.
will pay fines. So those dates really are
I think
a
at that
target
time,
for us to get
we
to.
would assume that cost whenever it came, but if that was the case right there, the 12 million.
I think some of the costs we're assuming right now, though, is the checkpoints, right? That on your agreement with DEQ.
Right, as we go
Yeah.
down and hit those projects, yeah, we are expending money as we, yeah.
Yeah, so with the 1-year extension, the way I looked at that is, okay, we, instead of doing 15 in a year, now we have 2 years to do 15%. That's kind of where we landed on 7.5. We'll split it over 2 years instead of 1 year. And then we'll come back again next year and look and see where we're at. Like, are we still on the schedule? I know that we also have our permit due up for 2028. And I'm thinking this construction is gonna take longer than what's on the schedule. I mean, think about the magnitude of a pipe up to Springfield. That's gonna take some time to get done. And so hopefully, they seem to, DEQ seems to be, as long as we're working at it, they're working with us. And yeah, to your point about Lane County, if they're gonna get in the way, we just have to go. We can't wait. And so,
Does anybody know if Cottage Grove has the same problem? Just curious.
Phil, and do one not too long ago.
They
Did
don't
they?
have the same issue. They have some deficiencies at their plant that they've been addressing.
Okay.
But they have a plant that will operate with some
Okay,
of their upgrades.
okay.
Junction County has, Junction City has the same, has a similar problem, and they are in the process of starting conversations with Metro wastewater to see if they could have a regional connection. So those conversations, so another smaller community is being affected similarly.
I was hoping Cottage Grove was, so that maybe we could cost share some of this, but.
Yes.
Yeah.
No such luck.
Junction City's a little,
Yes.
yeah, far over.
And then Jim, sorry, I just wanted to, sorry, Director Piper, I just wanted to also just kind of jump back again. I feel like I'm a history person today. But if I remember right from several, we've been talking about the we need to build up reserves, like, because there is going to be a big cost coming for several years, right? So this is not a new, like, what? Where did this come from?
yeah, there's two reasons for that. One is so it's not the huge jump in rates. And one, that we have some money to put into the project that we don't have to go out and finance, because we all know that even 4% over 30 years equals double cost, right? I mean, relatively speaking, but who wants to finance the whole thing? If we have a little bit of money in reserves, it bodes well, it'll go a long ways. And yeah, I'll show that in the slides. One of the things I want to address is just kind of some of the assumptions that were built into these worksheets. For personal services, even the water rates, we seem to be, over time, again, this is on average, personal services tend to go up about 5.9% year over year. Not all of that is wages. We know that part of that is medical insurance likes to poke us every once in a while, and I think anybody and everybody can relate to that. There'll be years where they raise it, 10%, and you're like, whoa. And so on average, a personal service, and that's only a portion of the personal services, but still, it affects personal services. And over, many, many years, the average has been about 5.9%. Materials and services, thankfully, is more like 3% year over year, although the COVID era was just craziness, right? But I'm thinking we're getting back to where it's pretty standard. Capital improvement, again, same, but we project about 4% year over year on average. We're just assuming going into this that we have to finance the whole thing with debt, that we're not getting grants. As things progress and things change, we'll share that good news with the committee and the council. But for the purpose of this exercise, we did a 30-year 4% interest rate debt service where we had to. And again, I want to emphasize Lake County must commit to paying their share for us to pull this off, because it's not okay for the users to pay for that. That's just obvious, right? So pros and the cons. Alternative one, that's the connection to MWMC. It's going to take a lot of time to get through the policy decision and implement. Pros, we can do it in phases, which will help, and it gives us more time to save, really. Alternative two.
So when you say do it in phases, you mean do the project in phases?
Yeah, there's parts of the project can be done in phases. Like we could build all the way to Goshen, and then once we get to Goshen, we need Lane County's committal to build it with additional capacity to help them out. Or if they just throw their hands up and say we can't do it, I did talk to our engineer, and we can size it down to where it's just what we need. So it is possible to do that.
That would eliminate the ability to actually get some of our money back in income, right, connections? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. But it takes the extra additional financing off of us.
Okay.
Alternative two, it could be a pro or con. It could be done really quickly, relatively speaking. We don't have to go through these policy meetings to start engineering it, bidding it out, and start doing the construction. That can also be a con, because that means we need the rates to pay for it tomorrow, right? So.
One question about 1 and 2 that I don't know that I've heard us discuss, but what does maintenance look like between 1 and 2 for future? Once everything is said and done, which one is more expensive for us?
Alternative two is going to be more expensive because we have to hire a more certified
Yes.
plant operator.
The plants are rated from 1 through 4 on how sophisticated they are when they do the treatment process. This plant would be a 3. We don't have a treatment plant operator 3 as of right now, so we would have to send a guy to get a 3, and we would have to hire an additional person. Moving forward from that, besides more staffing, there's more chemical, there's more electrical usage, there's more wear and tear on parts and pieces, pumps, equipment that we would have to maintain. And then 20 years from now, you're gonna have the same conversation, because there's gonna be more regulations coming down. The plants have to be upgraded again. So exponentially, a new treatment plant for us is more money
All the way.
all the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, which is why I asked.
Not to mention like the midstream sort of improvements we might need to make at a couple million here, a couple million there,
Yeah.
for upgrades
Okay.
along the way.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. So while we're putting pipe to Goshen, who's paying for the dump hookup? Are we paying for them to hook up to us?
Yeah, that would be Lane County. That's when Lane County would have to step in and say, okay, we're ready to finance our portion of it.
So it's not just to Goshen, it's actually connecting before that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, there are some pieces before we get there that, if we engineer with capacity for Lane County, that's something we want to negotiate up front, is that Lane County will pay for the engineering. Like, your portion of the engineering, you need to pay for it. So I think that'll all be addressed in the MOU, IGAs that we establish.
When will we make a decision between 1 and 2?
So we're leaning towards one, right? The
Right,
regional
right,
connection.
right.
We have to get through the policy piece. So the other agencies, the Metro, Eugene, Springfield, Lane County, their governing bodies need to say, yes, we're going to approve or go through what's called the Metropolitan Area Plan update. Because right now, that plan restricts any services going beyond the growth boundary of Eugene and Springfield. So all three of those agencies have to agree for that plan to be updated. We've met with all three. All three are, what I would say, in general support, and want to know in detail, or for us to be able to show them that their rate users are not going to be adversely affected, and that our connecting to the system isn't going to otherwise burden the system, and it has capacity. We will be able to show all of that. So that's why we're progressing well. I think we go this spring to a combined planning commission meeting for either Lane County, some of the municipalities. So they're supportive. It might be another 6 months process for us to get that amendment. But once we're assured the amendment is taking place, we were talking internally about going to some sort of design level, maybe this fall, late fall-ish, so we can start on the design process.
Would council choose between 1 and 2?
Council would need, we would make a recommendation, council would need to choose.
That's
because
that's
it's
kind
a
of what I was
huge-
asking,
Oh.
like, how long do you think we
Oh,
get to
they-
that point?
I would
So
probably say late summer, maybe.
So it'll be
early
this
fall.
year?
Yeah.
okay, because I think that's important when we're considering setting rates,
Yeah.
so,
We're trying to have it
Yeah.
where we have a good indication from the other
Yeah.
agencies that that the Metro Plan amendment's going to go forward, because we don't want to time it where you guys are out in front of them, and then all of a sudden that falls through. So we're hoping maybe late fall, early, late fall, early winter for us to have that locked up.
okay, thanks.
It would be nice to get that done with this current council, because you know you have an election this year, potentially 4 people could be turned over. And it would be nice to have the council that has been thoroughly through this whole project.
Yes.
And understands it, to be having those discussions and making that decision.
That's a good point. Yep.
Excellent, yes. I just also want to point out that there's some reserves that'll be used to reduce the debt service. $3 million in sewer SDCs will be available for capacity improvements. And then we have projecting about $9 million in sewer capital improvements with alternative 1. And alternative 2, there's about $14 million in reserves. Yeah, so alternative 2, the least of my favorite, we're looking at an immediate 50% increase. And then follow it up next year with a 35% increase, and then we level out. And both of those increases are needed to meet that debt service payment. You can see below, we'd have loan proceeds coming in. About $47 million in loan proceeds to get done the $70 million in work. And again, part of that is because it's going to be paid with reserves and SDCs. But then $47 million gets you a $3.2 million year-over-year debt service payment. So once construction is done, we're looking at, construction possibly done in 2030. Again, because it's the quicker, easier solution to get to. We can start engineering it and constructing it in about 2-3 years. We need to be able to pay that debt service payment. And so that is a really harsh reality, and not one I'm in favor of.
whenever you do that meeting in the summer, are you gonna be able to get answers about speculation about proposed or projections of cost for the Crestwell residents? So when we finally start getting it tied into them, are we gonna have something to be able to tell these people like, hey, you know, it's gonna be, I don't know, $40 a month, you know, projected. And I'm not saying 40, but
Sure,
it could be
sure.
600, but are we gonna have some numbers to say, hey, look, we're projected that?
They
Yeah,
should have those.
We have those, when we get further in the presentation, they'll come up. Any way we slice it, it's not pretty. Even at the regional solution, yeah.
I just wanted to, for my own sake, doing nothing, neither option, isn't an option, right?
It's
Because of
not an
the,
option.
because of the DEQ's moratorium and the fees or the penalties that will start
Right, there's a
occurring.
couple of reasons why you can't do it. One, it's illegal to not be able to grow a city, right? So you can't have a moratorium that goes on forever. So that's one issue. That's a legality issue, and the city could actually get sued for not allowing growth. So that's one thing. And then number two, like I already said, we have a schedule that we have to meet, and if we don't meet those, and we just say we blow them off, say we're just not doing this, we'll just continue to get compounding fines over and over and over, and it will get very expensive. So there's a couple of reasons why we can't just say, go away.
Can the DEQ also, because we have to get permits, the DEQ, can they also revoke permits and essentially shut down the sewer plant?
Yeah, they could do that.
And we'll tie
Once
into your
you
side.
come out of compliance and you become, you know, basically this habitual compliance breaker, there's all kinds of things they can do, and you don't really want to find out what those are, but yeah. They can do quite a few things that all equal to a lot of money.
And I wasn't suggesting.
Strategy,
Careful, you got rubber
We are,
in there.
we are in a position where we have to.
Yeah,
Alternative one, alternative two.
yeah.
Yes. And thanks to him, we have the alternative one that's different.
Well, and staff, I mean.
Well,
and staff.
y'all came up with a great
Yeah.
idea that wasn't even an option for us last year.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I didn't remember that from last year's meeting.
no, there was two options last year. What was the other option that's not on here?
A different kind of treatment build-out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a pond option.
That's
that
right,
really
that's
wasn't
right. Yeah,
That'd be just throwing money away. I think it was marginally savings, but potential of like we alluded to, the continually upgrading the thing, a couple $1 million at a time, year over year, every few years. It just becomes as expensive with a system that's less than what we could
sure.
do.
I have one other question. Do either of these alternative plans or future plans for our sewer treatment take into consideration the possibility of the east side of the community feeding into it? Or does that not play into this at all? I know that we're on
So
a
that
separate
has been
system.
discussed internally. That is not part of our planning efforts at this time. And the reason it's not is that is a privately owned system, and those folks don't have, from our understanding, any inclination that they would ever want to turn that over or not run that. You know, it's a money-making situation for them. And at this point, if we tried to bring that in, that would just be additional load, which would that would compound our issues right now with sending additional sewer to them, to MWMC. It has been discussed, it's been thought about, but at this point, it's not part of our solution.
Is the infrastructure that we're planning is it capable of taking an extra load if that came up?
So this is projected out for a population of about 7,500, which is what our kind of 20-year horizon looks like for population. So it's sized for about 20 years of growth, and that's not including the east side. That being said, if the east side absolutely had to come in, there is ways that it could happen, but it would take a lot of infrastructure build to make it happen. Because we would have to take all the sewage from that side of town and get it all the way out to our treatment plant. And so you'd be bored under I-5. and
Right.
There'd be a lot of pipe, associated with that. And then if that happened, whatever load came from the east side would reduce our amount or our ability for this side for the planning period for the horizon. So for those reasons, it's not included in this.
It's unfortunate that the council that allowed that did, because it also increased our cost share, right? Like, it would have been, all of this would be less impactful
Yeah.
if they hadn't done that to us, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, great question. Absolutely. Been talking about this, and yeah, it's another puzzle, right? And I think Cliff answered that pretty well.
Lots of challenges,
Yeah.
opportunities.
So, alternative one with a 15% rate increase, if we were to go there, it allows us to kind of go into 4% mode year over year, and then eventually in 2035, reduce it down to 1.75% just to keep up with operational costs. Yeah, that's one scenario. It does sound a lot better than 50%, followed by 35%. That being said, it's contingent upon everything else working out. Another scenario with alternative one is that sewer is raised 7.5% year over year for about 5 years. And then in 2032, we're sitting at just operational increase year over year. So 3 years earlier, we get to that just having to raise for operational cost increases. It also has a little more contingency built in if things don't go right. We've still got that 7.5% increase year over year. Definitely, it makes it so that we can meet the debt service. Again, you'll see that 12 million down there. So we've got some shaded green and some shaded orange there of kind of phases, initial phases, so that I can see in the project. Now, this is really rough engineering. We're going to have preliminary engineering that's going to reveal more, but this is kind of where I talked about phases. And so the orange phase is where we start getting into the Goshen and Springfield. At that point in time, we need $12 million from Lane County, if not sooner, to help pay for that portion. Again, I don't think the users can't pay for it. I mean, that's not an option. So recommended rate recommendation for sewer from staff would be to do a 7.5% rate increase in fiscal year 26-27. Gives us borrowing capacity of about 24 million. And one other thing I wanted to mention, I threw it on this slide, is that we really need to start discussions about a utility program funded for low and fixed income households in Creswell. This would be something for the council to decide on.
Yeah, wouldn't that you're just asking us to pay more taxes? I mean, more. So you would ask us to pay more so that we could fund other people because we're too expensive for them. Is that what we're getting at?
Well, we wouldn't do it with user fees. This would have to come from the general fund. It would be another community
That would be-
program.
That everybody in the community would also pay for. It doesn't matter where it comes from, it still comes from us.
Right,
Yeah, okay.
right. It wouldn't be an additional fee or anything. We would just have to make, and this is really something for the council to discuss, but I just wanted to let this group know that we're getting to that point. It's gonna be not affordable to pay for
So we should do
utilities.
live affordable city services from our wall.
I got a question. So have we thought about something of doing something that's the same every month off of their prior year cost? You know, something so somebody can budget, like we're gonna have $60 continuously throughout the year, instead of, 20 here, 80 here, going all over the place. Is there something that we could just budget it throughout the whole year for a person?
Don't sewer rates stay pretty much the same?
Yeah,
throughout the year?
sewer rates kind of do that, but water rates.
Water rates, I'm just saying
Yeah.
is there an opportunity there for us to stabilize something like that for people?
I see what you're asking. It's kind of like, I see power utilities do this where you can just pay a monthly average for the year.
And it fluctuates every year.
Yeah.
It goes off of your usage.
Yeah, just a caution that, the ratepayers can't pick that up, but you're talking about the rate, the individual paying their rates just on an average basis.
Yeah.
That's something we'd have to look into
Yeah,
and
I
discuss.
don't know. We would have to look at our payment system to see if it could average that out. I have that with Northwest Natural Gas.
Yeah.
It's an average payment, so I don't get this spike.
Yeah.
I think the answer is that we don't know if our payment system has that capability.
Well, that way, like, the more vulnerable people will know what is coming,
Mhm.
You got people, the older, the people with just everybody.
Yeah.
It would be a nice option.
Yeah, I think we do have some users who do that themselves. I mean, they just pay the same amount every month, and if it's over, it's over, and they make up for it in the months that it's,
I'm one of them.
yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, I was gonna call you out, but there are some folks who just do that.
Yeah.
It's a great way to have consistency month over month.
Of course.
So when you talk about starting utility program funding, the city has an H2O program that is all voluntary, where people can add something onto their water bill each month that goes into, and I think it's managed by Cottage Grove still,
Yeah, it's a community.
community share.
Community sharing, yeah.
So
goes
is this
down
the
there.
kind of thing you're talking about, or something different?
Yeah, similar to that. I think we've kind of kicked it around internally and just like, what if it was a local entity who's doing this instead of folks having to drive down to Cottage Grove? It's more of a policy decision. But you're right, we do have community sharing and people donate to that. We have the program called H2O, it's short for Help to Others. And people can donate a little extra on their utility bill to go into that fund. And it does go down to community sharing, and then when folks have a hard time paying their utility bills for whatever reasons, life happens, we direct folks down to them, and they do help out.
Well, you mentioned also that it could be a program that's funded by the general fund.
It could be. I think we have other nonprofits that we help out, like Community First does the grant programs for the city for nonprofits that have a funding gap for an emergency need.
So if you funded it that way, that doesn't change what we, the citizens, are paying, because that comes out of the general fund, which is based on taxes, and those are already set. So we're not bumping up what we're paying, but we're taking money from the general fund that could be used for something else.
Right,
Okay.
right, you just can't charge other utility users, so you can't take it out of the water fund, for example.
Right.
Or the sewer fund to pay for somebody else's utility
So
bill.
staff would have to recommend a different place to take some of that fund, and then the budget committee would have to approve it, and then the council would have to approve it, because they approve the budget.
Yeah.
I just wanted clarification on how that would work.
There is also a little strategy at play here. When working with the DEQ and talking about potential funding, we have this barrier because we're considered an affluent community, right? Our median household income is greater than the county's average, and a lot of that has to do with 2 working members in the household for a lot of the households. And interestingly enough, even for affluent communities, if you have a program to help low income, it can get you qualified for certain grants and programs. So just something I thought I'd let the committee be aware of, and the council is aware, will be aware as well. It's not a mandate by any means. It's just I would be remiss if I didn't talk about that at
So
this
why
point.
are we bringing it up? Are we considering this when we go do our budget in a couple months?
Yeah, it would be the time to consider it. If you would want to have an allocation into the general fund.
I guess what
let's
I'm
say-
asking, is that the intent?
The-
Is that why this is on this slide? Because you intend to bring this idea to council for this budget session?
We intend to bring this idea to council.
Okay.
As an option to have it where we can be looked upon favorably for grants. And it could be from the general fund, certainly up to council, it could be a $5,000 a year contribution, it could be a $10,000 a year. It could also address the question that the council received when the work session took place and the community came out and said, well, what about low income and these rate increases for low income? So it's a question for the council to answer based off of previous conversations and input from the community and concerns. It also addresses the concern from council about us not being able to go after some grants. So if we have a program that we're funding $5,000 a year for the next 5-6 years before the rates, that is not a huge impact on our budget, it's nominal. So that's the information we want to provide, so we do our due diligence, so council is informed on what's out there and what might work in that holistic view.
What specific grants are available to us that would not be available to us otherwise?
I don't have that off the top of my head.
Because I don't know if I believe that. I want to see that. Yeah.
That's gonna depend on population too.
Yeah, it depends on median household income and all that kind of stuff too. And basically, every program we start, every social service program that gets started, the middle class basically picks up, right? So all of low income aside, you still have working class families in Cresswell that are barely making ends meet month to month, and we cannot forget about them. You know, they would have to pick up any additional costs for any programs we put together, whether it be for water, sewer, homeless, or whatever. It doesn't matter. We're choking out the actual workers. And you know, we have this commitment to have an affordable city, but we don't. And then, and so to remedy that, well, let's start this program. We have to figure out a better way to get things done with our budgets and not have to develop programs for our own failures. It's really frustrating. I'm sorry. I have a really hard time with this. And the fact that it's on this slide today really clued me into the fact that we're going to be having this discussion again. So.
Sorry, just to clarify, so it sounds like what if I'm understanding this correctly, so it sounds like the recommendation is to increase rates at 7.5% in fiscal year 2026, 2027, which would give you a borrowing capacity at 24 million, and start utility program funding for low income, or for low fixed income, or is it, and then that is also like would you like us to make that recommendation,
No.
or?
I think the main recommendation is the 7.5.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
the piece, okay.
That other,
The others are
that,
just notes.
that's
It's just
just
notes.
a note of what
Yeah, I apologize for that confusion.
is a no. We're not asking this body to make that recommendation. Staff would have that conversation in response to a previous work session when the regional connection was talked about. The increase to rates were a real concern for the public. How lower income or fixed income would afford it. So since those were questions hanging out for the council, it's our responsibility to at least give them an option so they can look at it and decide for themselves what they would like to do.
Okay.
Yeah, excellent questions and good discussion here. Again, it's all ultimately up to this group to decide. These are just our thoughts from working in this day in and day out. And to the point that Dave Strand brought up is that there are some utility programs out there for low income, fixed income already. On that note, I'll wait for Councilor Holt to return to the group here, and I just wanted to bring up, you asked for a program specific that asked for the low income, and to Dave's point, we do have help to others that already exists, and that did help us on the USD RUS grant that we got for the facilities plan update, and we were gonna get that anyways because it was a loan, but what we didn't qualify as an affluent community was $100,000 forgiveness. But because we could show that we have this help to other program that we have people donating to, that they granted us the $100,000 loan forgiveness based on that. And that's where I kind of went, oh, okay, thank goodness there's this provision that just doesn't single us out because we have hardworking families who make above medium household income. So to your point, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Transportation utility fee, I'm gonna be brief on this. It's functioning as far as the collection side of things. And we know that for this to work, we have to have some participation in the LID. Didn't realize it would be so controversial. And then on the next slide, on slide 30, we talk about the effectiveness of the TUF. So the intent of the TUF was to accelerate construction, right? We thought if we just add more money, I mean, on paper, we should be able to do a project every 3 years. What we're finding out is there are other things that affect projects, that delay projects, and Second Street is like a prime example. We're not gonna get to the next project in 3 years. I think we might already be at that point in time, and we're nowhere near doing 10th Street. The other thing that can affect is change in priority for the project. You know, things may change. And then the use of the local improvement district impacts that as well. What we did find as a positive is that with the current funding, we can do chip seal projects, and those prolong the use of the streets. That's a funding mechanism we didn't have before. And we still have money going to reserves for future street projects. And we will try to hit those projects in order of priority and as things allow. One of the things we didn't discuss is inflation. What's the impact of year-over-year inflation on that $4? It's kind of a moving target because the state keeps coming up with more funding at the state level. As we know, they tried to come up with a lot more funding, and that got shot down. But even prior to that, House Bill 2017 raised the state gas tax, and it raised vehicle registration fees, and we started having a lot more state monies coming in at the same time that we implemented the TUF. So again, it seems to be effective right now. And with all the other rates that are increasing, it just doesn't seem appropriate to say we need to raise it. So staff recommendation is just to hold it.
So, I don't have any of this information, so I'm just curious. The second South Second Street project, has the cost of that escalated either due to issues with the LID, which I don't know how that's gone, or with the delays, construction delays? Have we seen escalating costs with doing South Second Street?
So some of the delays have created a couple of change orders that increase pricing. Not a lot, but some. The contract is still the same, so just because it's delayed doesn't really mean that the cost of it has went up, because the contract is still valid. The LID did not generate as much money as was first projected. And so because council wanted to keep LIDs at a lower rate that impact each individual property owner, then the city has to pick up whatever the LID didn't pick up. So there is a cost increase because that LID was not as high as first anticipated.
And the final LID hasn't been decided, right?
No, there is a cap on it that council set. But the LID won't be fully initiated until the project is done, build out, and we know exactly how much those costs are. They're probably going to be more than what the LID cap is set at by council, but if they're not, then they will come down to actual costs.
Yeah, and to that point, I mean, the merit of the TUF was just to accelerate projects, and to some cost increases, yes, we have other funding sources. The project will be funded. It's just how soon we can get to the next project, and will that project go on time? We don't know.
Right, so future road upgrades are basically going to be delayed. We know that those costs are out there, we know that those streets need to be taken care of. But unlike a wastewater situation where we have a deadline and we have a requirement, we can control our own destiny on the streets. And so if council makes the policy decision to not increase rates and to delay maintenance, we can do that, and the street just won't be repaired at the rate that it had been anticipated.
How many, I know that Second Street had a really bad problem, like it was crumbling underneath
Right.
it or whatever.
Yep.
Are any of our other streets in that same disarray, or are they chip sealable?
There are several streets that are in the same situation as Second Street, and most of them are the ones that were built in the same timeline, but they don't have the amount of traffic as Second Street
Okay.
does. So if you go look at Third Street,
Yeah.
Fourth Street, they're kind of in the same boat. 10th Street is the next one that's on our priority list. It's not as bad as Second Street, even though folks think it is. It actually has a base that's okay, just the actual asphalt's falling apart. So we actively patch and asphalt that every year, and we can continue to do that. And that's how we can delay, not doing road projects as quickly as we had first anticipated.
Good comment from the
I just had a question, because the lid has gone from like 400,000+ of the people living on Second Street down to 100 and some thousand. I don't know what the final will end up being, but that's a huge loss of revenue because the lid didn't fly and the TUF was counting on having that money. So what's to say that isn't setting a precedence and hasn't set a precedence to where every street you now want to go on throughout the city, they're gonna go, hey, Second Street didn't have to pay a lid, we're not gonna pay a lid, we don't care who voted in the lid. What is the domino effect of that as far as now even less money? Because I didn't think the math to begin with for the lid was, or the TUF was going to pencil out, because right off the bat, within the first couple weeks, that people were saying, oh no, not for my business, oh no, not for my square footage, oh no, can I have an exemption, oh no, the church or whatever, and
Yep.
I'm not criticizing that, but it started already kind of reducing before your very eyes as it was happening. So if we've set the precedent for the lid and/or it's been such a public outcry for a few people on Second Street, it's going to expand out maybe.
Yeah, that's been staff's thoughts as well. In fact, we're going through and auditing all the commercial accounts internally and looking at those waivers again, because things have changed since those waivers went into place. A lot of that was COVID era and things were weird.
Yeah.
But we're looking again at those businesses. Right now, the good thing about the TUF, and maybe not the good thing, depends on who you are, but about 52% of the TUF is being paid for by businesses, and they're the ones who are generating the traffic. So, and there's only, you saw in one of the slides, that only accounts for, a small portion of our community, and they're paying a good share of it. And the ones that are paying the most are larger corporations who don't even bat an eye at it. They haven't even called me, in fact, to even question it. So there are some businesses who can't afford it. And they're the ones who generate a lot of traffic. So they're effectively helping pay for our roads, but to what extent, Debbie, to what extent is that working? We're still trying to figure that out, and because we're still trying to figure that out, I don't think it's appropriate to call for increase in the TUF fee at this time. Yeah, great point. So just a recap of our suggestions, and here, these are the suggestions. Sorry about the confusion on the notes on the sewer rates.
It's okay.
Water at 1.5% rate increase, sewer at a 7.5% rate increase, and TUF no increase. Now I want to show on slide 32, it shows what that looks like year over year over year. In 2031-32, we can revisit the TUF maybe, and the reason I just threw 6% out there because it just happens to be a quarter, 25 cents for the typical household. So maybe we look at raising the TUF then. Maybe we don't. Again, I can't look into my crystal ball that far ahead. But you can see that that's when we start looking at 21-32 is when sewer rates start coming back down to stability along with water rates. And it's not as much of an impact overall to the Creswell residents. A 15% rate increase with the 4% year over year, and then the TUF looks similar again. Just another option. A 3% water rate, which I don't know if we want to do that. This slide kind of shows what the 3% increase in water rates would do for 2031. And then we go to zero for a while, and that helps with the burden of the sewer rate increases. Just some things to think about. It's different ways to look at this. All right, I'm going to increase my slide here so I can see it with my bifocals. I apologize for the delay there. So we can all imagine what the effect of the 50% sewer rate increase would do. But here it is in dollars and cents. It would ultimately raise the utility bill overall by $40, like starting with the August bill, right? July 31st bills go out. August 2nd, the phones ring off the hooks.
So the 6% public safety percentage increase, what is that?
Good catch, Dave Strand. That is something I had wanted to discuss with this group. I know it's not in this group's purview, but it is information that I now know. So I thought it fair to share with y'all, and the council will be hearing about it too. So the county has sent us this is what your contract's gonna be next year from their budgetary office. And it's about a 12% rate increase. I haven't gone on the horn with them personally and discussed it, but talking to the sergeant a little bit, I know there's a little competition now between the agencies over good employees. And I think the term is poaching, and it's raising their salaries. And I think they've negotiated this through their union as well.
It's pretty gross when you consider that most people don't even get a cost of living wage increase in their jobs unless they're working for the state or the government. It's kind of ugly that they're doing that. I know it's out of your control.
Yeah, it wasn't our call, and I respect the job that the officers do. They do a really tough job. The increase is 12, but I think that based on some analysis I did and previous public safety rate increases, I think that really appropriately only the public safety fee should face 6% of that. And there's some merit to that. Dave Strand might remember back when it was originally adopted that it was to pay for one deputy. And then it was to pay for 2 deputies, so we're 2 of 4 deputies. So it's half of the rate increase. And now it's a half-time sergeant to a full-time sergeant. So really it is 1/2 of the bill from Lane County is being paid for by a public safety fee. What this has done is given us pretty close to 24/7 police coverage, which is what we were hoping for. I remember coming to work on Fridays and there wasn't anybody here from the sheriff's department. And I'm not talking about a one-off where somebody was at training. This was every Friday until we got that 4th deputy and the sergeant went up to full-time. I also remember the more detective work got done when the sergeant went to full-time, and there were some pretty significant cases that broke open here. But that being said, the full 12% doesn't go to the public safety fee if that is the merit, if that's the history of the rate. And that would be my recommendation to the council coming up, is that we only charge 6% of it. That being said, we're still looking at a $1.19 increase in the public safety fee. So this is doom and gloom, right? This is we have to raise rates immediately for the $70 million alternative. Conversely, the 15% rate sewer increase with 0 water is $12.76. Most of that is sewer. In fact, 11.58 of it's sewer. And that's a 8% increase overall in the utility bill if you look at the total bottom line. 7.5% sewer, 3% water is a $8.55 cent increase over the typical water user. This is 5,000 gallons, or we do 100 cubic feet because scientists like to use initials CCF. So that turns out to be 6.68 or 668 cubic feet of usage. That is actually pretty typical. I've ran the numbers just out of curiosity. And so your typical user would be paying about $161 a month in this scenario. And then finally, the recommendation was the 7.5% sewer rate, 1.5 water rate increase with a known, this is what public safety is looking like, and no tough increase. It would be $160.87 a month for a typical user, which is a $7.76 monthly rate increase, or a 5% overall rate increase. I shouldn't say rate increase, 5% bill increase, because each of the utilities have different rate increases. But so that's kind of where we landed. It's the least impactful. They're all impactful, don't get me wrong. When I leave here, I'm a consumer just like everybody else, and I think about these things. These are things that keep me up at night. I've added a couple slides since I sent out the email. A couple questions came in about, where is this going? So, in the handouts I handed out tonight, slide 39 shows where we'll end up in 3031, and it's scary. So I just wanted, you all need to know this is what could be is $194.59.
And that's
Monthly
based on the
utility.
1.5, the latest scenario, the 1.5, 7.5.
Yeah, right there at the bottom, the fine print.
Yeah, and
Without the
a
glasses.
and a 3% public safety fee rate increase, and that's something that we need to talk about with the county. Biz and I were talking about, having some, for us as a consumer of policing services, we need to have some kind of stable rate increases instead of every 4 years getting a big surprise.
Every 4 years.
Yeah, it seems, if you go back historically, when I looked at what the county had submitted to us for rate increases on the contract, I've seen this jump about every 4 years.
I feel like it's increased at least once since I've been on council.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, I'm just talking about what the county has shown us, I'm sorry, above what I would say is normal, like on average it's 3 to 4, and then every 4 years.
It should be in line with CPI.
Yeah, I think Jim's talking about the spikes, like
Yeah,
we're trying to
yeah, I
avoid spikes.
understand now, yeah.
So we want to talk to the county and have them look at like what we're doing, like stabilize it and give us a predictable increase.
Yeah.
So we can budget that as well. I mean, that's what he's.
That's what I meant, thank you, Ben. Yeah, that's what I meant, sorry. Yeah, we do see increases every year, but 12% is a lot.
I have a question, and I don't know if you can do this math or not right quickly. So page 33 talks about a 15% sewer rate increase, and then 4% all the way up to 34.35. Versus page 34, no, page 32 has the 7.5%, but then that goes out 5 years. What would the math look like, 7.5% each year for 5 years versus 15% for 1 year, and then 4% for 5 years?
I don't have it on hand, but to meet the same results for future expenditures, I'm gonna say it's gonna end up in the same result, it's just how soon we get there. Like the 15% right now gets us there sooner.
And then you have pretty big cutbacks in the next 4 or 5 years versus 7.5%, 7.5%, 7.5% every year.
Yeah, but how do I answer this? The 4% is going to compound on top of the already increased 15%. So it's not straight across. It's not a linear. It's an exponential.
Yeah.
It's exponential math.
That's what I was wondering about.
Yeah, it essentially gets us to the same result. It's just, do we want to do it really quick and do the 15% now and tell folks it'll only be 4% next year, but it's 4% on the already increased 15% rate, so it's exponentially more than just 4%, right? I think it's bodes well to have the more consistent rate increase year over year. It puts less burden on the ratepayer right now, but we end up with the same result. I guess that's the answer to your question.
Thank you.
So I added one more slide, and I think this is crucial to look at. What this slide shows is the rate increases in 5-year chunks going back to 2002. And the reason this came to mind was it came up in 2002, sewer rates were, and I think it's actually $16 per month. I hate to admit that, just not 25 years ago, that's all it cost for sewer. Granted, in that time period, in that 2002 to 2006, rates had to jump up almost 90%. And I looked at our water projects and debt service that we're close to finishing now, and that was exactly when the last sewer project happened, was 2007, if I'm correct. That's when our debt service kicked in, and that debt service is now coming to a conclusion.
And this also includes water, right?
It includes water, it includes public safety. Public safety didn't come into effect until 2015. And then the TUF didn't happen until 2023.
Because didn't we do the water and sewer treatment facilities very close to each other within a couple of
In a
years?
couple of years, yeah.
And we didn't have much saved, and we had to take out millions of dollars. And it was required by the government. I mean, it was federal requirements, we had to do water and sewer. Because I remember, at that time, I had little kids growing up, and all of a sudden, my rates shot way, way up, and I was like, what? That's
Yeah.
when the outcry began.
And you weren't alone. I was actually a municipal auditor during that time period, and every town we went to, it was the same thing. They all got hit at the same time with the same requirements, and they had aging systems. And a lot of those systems were paid for with federal dollars. I mean, they didn't cost, hence why there was no savings for future projects, because there was already a working facility. But, after 40, 50 years passes by, it was time to rebuild. And this go around, the feds said, we don't have any money, you gotta charge your users. And then that happened, I think, nationally. I don't think it was just Oregon. But to that point, yeah, you had to pay for both water and sewer, and the water kind of ran into the 2007 to a 2011 time period too, where utility rates were still increasing over 40% year over year during that time period. And then 2012 to 16, couple things happened. The construction was done, rates were set, but we also had a recession period where we hadn't quite recovered. By 16, by 16 we're in better economic times. We realized, I remember sitting in those early meetings and realized that we need to put some money away. I remember the water rate committee talking about, or even the finance committee at that time talking about, it'd be wise to put a little money away. We know that eventually we're gonna have to replace this plant. So they came up with a reserve amount, ideally. And then we started having water rate advisory committees, and we started paying attention to those capital improvement plans. And reserves started to build up. We did have the TUF implementation in 23 that caused that 22 to 26 increase, but 27 to 31 with the projected 7.5 year over year and 1.5 for water year over year, leave the TUF where it's at, and hopefully we can get some consistency in the public safety contract. We're looking a lot more stable for rate increases comparative to prior decades. Yeah, any questions?
I was gonna say, so quick question, I was doing a little bit of math. So I was looking, I started looking at like slide 38, if it's helpful. So that was kind of the combination of 7.5% sewer and 1.5% water, and then again, assuming no increase with the TUF. And so I was like, okay, so what would the combination be if we did 7.5% sewer and 0% water? Right, like what would that be? And I did the math a couple of different ways, so I think I feel good about the number, but assuming it would drop it, if we did a 0% water, that would drop it down to about $7 a month of increase, right? Because, again, I did it a couple of different ways, and I was like, oh, it's already right there, I could have just looked.
Yeah, you're not wrong. That
Yeah.
would be a $7 increase.
Okay, do we have an idea about, because that $7.76%, or $7.76 equals to be about a 5% overall increase? Is that, if we drop it down, do we have a decrease, like is there a, like 4.5%? Like, I haven't done that math yet.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll pull it up real quick on the calculator. So it's this, it comes out to be, what, 703 if you take away, well, no, 697. If you take away the 79-cent increase in water. So, and divide that by the 153.11 in projected 25-26 utility bill, which those rates are set already. So, yeah, 4.5%, you're spot on. Verified.
All right, okay. I was gonna say, and I ran those numbers, because as I was reflecting back on like kind of the conversation that we were having when we were talking about the water bill, is it sounds like every dollar, every cent matters, and so we wanna just make sure that we're exploring kind of all of our options. Okay. Other questions for Director Piper?
Yeah. Fire away, because I'm sure.
Well, we didn't wait till the end, so we got them all out already.
So anticlimactic at the
I
end.
know.
I can't wait till the end when we're discussing 3 different things, because I need to ask the questions while we're in that topic. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah.
No,
We all did it, so I didn't feel too
Yeah.
bad.
no, I thought that was great. I was just hoping the rates wouldn't be set until we get to the end, so there was no motions to
Yeah, yeah.
out there. So the questions are great. We need to hear from y'all. It helps us be more effective as your staff. So we appreciate that.
So I guess I want to be mindful of time, and that's about 10 to 8 at this point. And so knowing that we need to meet again, because we need to approve some minutes, do we want to try and push forward, make some decisions tonight that we would approve, make some decisions tonight and then approve the minutes? Or do we want to sit and let this marinate just a little bit and then come back to the next meeting with more thoughts on it?
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
I motion that we take staff recommendation and raise our sewer rate 7.5% and leave TUF and the water rate at 0. That's my motion.
I second that motion.
So it's a motion by, no, that's.
Excited.
This is thrilling stuff,
So that's a slight amendment from the 1.5 water down to 0 water.
Yeah, wait, I'm committed to sticking to our charter, and I don't feel that building the reserves is part of that. And so I think we're in a good place. It sounds like our reserves are in a good place, that we could handle a basic emergency. So that's my motion.
And you could always revisit it next year or something.
That's exactly right.
Yep.
So we have a motion on the table from Councillor Holt that we would recommend a 7.5% sewer increase and no increase in water rates and no increase in TUF, or the transportation utility fee. I think I said that a little bit different. Is that still okay, though?
Yeah, you're fine.
Great,
Yeah.
great, wonderful. And then that's been seconded by Councillor Kent. So we have a motion and a second on the table. Are there any additional discussion points?
So how do we amend a motion? How do we move to amend a motion?
You move to amend the motion, and you then say what your amendment is, and then we would vote on the amendment first, and
There has to be
then
a second to my motion.
there has to be a second to it, which could not happen, but it's hard to
Sure.
say.
So I move to amend the motion to a 7.5% sewer increase, 1.5% water increase, and leave the tough as it is. And my rationale would be that I think that what the voters passed in 2015 was intended to continue to build whatever reserves are necessary towards the future. So I think that was understood. And I feel more comfortable. That was the staff's recommendation, 1.5%. That would be my pitch. So that's my motion to amend.
Okay, so there is a motion to amend the motion on the table to change so that it would read as a 7.5% sewer, 1.5% water increase, and then a 0% increase in the TUF. Is there a second to the amendment? Is there a second to the amendment?
Second.
So there's a second. So at this point, we would now move into, so there's second to that amendment. So now there's discussion on the amendment. So I think really the discussion is, at this point, would we like to move forward with that amendment?
We have to vote on the amendment now. Or we have discussion about it, but,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so discussion on that amendment.
I'll call the vote.
Okay, so that's been, the question has been called by Councillor Holt. And so then the discussion is, the vote is as to the amendment as to 1.5% of the water increase. Okay, so is everyone clear what that means? So a yes.
We're voting to amend the first motion.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So a yes vote would mean to amend it to 1.5%. A no vote would not support the amendment, so keep it as the motion on the table. Okay, so all of those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand or say yes. So we got 1, 2. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. So by a by a vote of 2 to 4, the amendment fails. And then we would move back to the motion on the floor, which is a 7.5% sewer increase and 0% increase of the water and 0% increase on the TUF. So we'll move back to discussion on the amendment. Sorry, we'll move back to the discussion on the motion on the floor.
So at 0%, does that in any way move us backwards? And the reason I bring it up was because during those hard years, we did have locked in for a period of about 5 years where the water rate went up automatically and sewer every year, 0.5%. And we didn't revisit it for several years. And when we did revisit it, we realized we were way behind. So I don't want to, I think a 0% is wonderful. But I'd rather have even a 0.5% increase and know that next year we're not saying, no, now we got to go 3% or 4%. Because 0% 2 years in a row on any other economy scale means you're going backwards. So that's just my question.
He projected out the 0%.
You want the staff to answer?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Only if you keep repeating that. I think to your point, in fact, I was just visiting all those resolutions. That's back when they would pass a resolution that would set rates for 5 years, and it would spell out that rate for each year. And that was not the best practice, I'll put it that way. Doing this every year, it doesn't put us backwards in 1 year, doesn't put us backwards in 2 years.
Or 3, according to this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all it means is that there'll be, from the 1.5 flat from now until 35 versus the 0 to 3, 1.5 flat out, there would be about 600,000 less in reserve. So it would go from a reserve of 4.8, the way that was 1.5, down to 4.2. So it's a $600,000 less in reserve, but should something come up, certainly within that 9-year period, I think if needed, we would be able to make that up. So I don't think we are going backward for a 1-year 0.
I was going to say also, just as a piece of discussion that I think is helpful, is that I think that holding it at 0%, I think, keeps us in a safe position. I think that also puts about 79 cents, not 79 cents back in the pocket, but it saves 79 cents per month on each bill, which I think does add up.
And when they cry about the sewer rates, we can at least say, well, we didn't raise the water rates.
Well, I think that's an important piece that
Yeah.
should be really acknowledged, and that's what Jim has been working on for the last number of weeks, is really, council is going to have to face that dark day when that public comes in, and I think the more this type of committee or the council can point to, we are doing everything we can, even now, knowing what's happening, to keep these rates down, to lessen what we know is going to be an impact. I think that is an important piece, Stacy, that really should be acknowledged.
It certainly helped last year.
Yep.
Just a side note to compliment you all, the beauty of it is, even if you're playing that out several years, it's not gonna get any further down the road than next year, and you're gonna re-examine it. So if you made that assumption now and it was a long-term mistake, you correct it next year, because you're so tightly controlling it and looking at it, so your review process is great.
Point. And I just want to compliment Jim, who really did an incredible amount of analysis and stuff, knowing the important decisions you guys were going to make, and then those decisions of the council. So, well done, Jim.
Yeah, thank you, Jim.
I always look forward to your presentations.
He probably sits there and goes, what's Stacy gonna ask?
No,
We haven't started that poll downstairs yet.
I like doing analysis.
Yeah.
I really have always liked it, and some people like bowling. I like analysis, it's weird.
I do too. Yeah, yeah, it's fun, huh? Yeah.
So we're voting.
Yep, so I was going to say, so any additional discussion on the motion on the table? I'd like to give just a few. Okay, so seeing no further discussion, we'll go ahead and move forward to a vote. So a yes vote means that you are recommending a 7.5% sewer increase, a 0% water increase, and a 0% no increase to the TUF. Okay, a no vote means that we move back to discussion. Okay. All right, so all of those in favor of making that recommendation, go ahead and raise your hand or say yes. All right, all those opposed? Which would be very difficult. All right, so by a vote of 6-0, that recommendation will be moving forward to council and to the budget. Okay. Excellent. All right, well, before we adjourn for tonight, I'm hoping that we can grab a calendar, and maybe as we're sitting here together, kind of find a time that we might be able to come back together to be able to
We have to wait
we have to wait.
until they figure out the issue.
Yep, and we'll,
So, and then we thought maybe by email.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and hopefully we can plan it like 15 minutes before a regular meeting.
Oh, yeah.
So, or something similar so that, it alleviates at least the three of us, but knowing
give us
that
the
we're
date?
dealing with everybody's schedules, yeah.
Give us the dates of the next, when's the next work session, when's the regular council meeting?
So the next work session is the 23rd of February. I think the next council meeting may be March
Is it the
9?
9, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it would be sometime around then, probably. That's-
We'll shoot for that. I mean, hopefully IT finds it pretty quick.
Yeah, I'm hoping that's.
So I mean, is the 23rd, would that be good for everyone? We could probably find that out right now, you know, if they are able to get that resolved before then.
It
Meet
works
at
for me.
Quarter till or 20 till?
Yeah, just like 15, 20 minutes before to get the minutes dealt with.
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay, all right. And then does March 9th, just as we're thinking about that date as well, does that date work?
It's really just the three of
Yeah.
you that,
Yeah.
yeah.
I can make it work.
So,
Do a
when do you
calendar.
present this to the council? Is it the February work session, 23rd?
I'll be going back with it, I believe, right?
Well, the chair of the
Yeah.
committee, and you're the chair of the committee.
Mhm.
So you have to present it to the, so Stacy has to, I mean,
Yeah,
Shelley, you
I'm
get
the
to
chair
go.
of the Transportation and Public Works Committee, which is the committee charged, right, with is the umbrella.
Well, it's
She
the
can
chair
come
of
if
this
she
committee.
wants.
She has to do it. It's the chair of this committee who presents.
Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, and the staff can put together a slideshow too. I could
Yeah.
share this presentation.
I was just wondering, in case some of us wanted to also come to that meeting.
yeah.
Whether, is that when it's slated to be presented?
Yes,
23rd?
the February work session is the charge.
When this comes back, okay.
That's when the committee reports will happen.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
The short answer is yes, I can make the 23rd. If that is helpful. I also have faith in Council Holt to be able to represent if I was
Oh, that's
available.
quite all right. I'll let you have it.
All right, so we are adjourned at 8:07 PM. Thanks, everyone.
Very good. Oh, good job, wow.
Thanks.
You are very experienced at this.
I learned from the best.
Great job on the presentation.
Hey, all the group's still here. I have to.
I didn't write on any of these, so I just,
I have to write on them. You can get dump.
yeah, I'm going to. That's what I was gonna have you.
I did make.
Manager
That might be
Mardarello,
an
props
extra.
too. He has definitely helped push me to put together a good presentation.
Thank you for your service on the committee, appreciate it.
Are you putting tables away, or is the next meeting in here gonna have these up?
If we could put the tables away, the next meeting is court tomorrow.
Oh,
All right. And I hope that when we don't have tables set up like this for courts, otherwise things have gone weird.
You would make Caleb day tomorrow.
visit with the Mark, good to see you.